The night I pulled a dying alpha from the wreckage of his burning car was the night my carefully constructed new life began to crumble. I should have left him there in the twisted metal and flames. I should have driven past like any sane person would. Instead, I did what I always did. I saved him. And in doing so, I doomed us both. Chapter 1. The scent of blood hit me before I saw the smoke rising from the ravine. I slammed on my brakes, my old pickup truck skidding to a stop on the mountain road. Through the darkness, orange flames licked at the night sky like hungry tongues. My hands trembled as I grabbed my medical bag from the passenger seat. 3 years of living as a rogue had taught me to mind my own business, to keep driving when trouble called. But the healer in me couldn't ignore the acrid smell of burning metal mixed with a copper tang of werewolf blood. I scrambled down the rocky slope, cursing my choice to take the scenic route home from the clinic in Millbrook. The town's supernatural community trusted me precisely because I wasn't a pack. I belonged to no one, owed allegiance to nothing but my oath to heal. The black SUV lay on its side, the driver's door pressed against a boulder. Steam hissed from the crumpled hood while flames consumed the rear of the vehicle. Through the spider-webbed windshield, I could make out a figure slumped over the steering wheel. Still alive. Barely. I circled to the passenger side, the heat from the fire singing my face. The door was jammed, but adrenaline gave me strength I didn't know I possessed. Metal groaned as I wrenched it open. The man inside was massive, even unconscious. Dark hair fell across a face that would have been handsome if not for the blood streaming from a gash on his forehead. His expensive suit was torn, revealing glimpses of a muscled chest that rose and fell in shallow breaths. Alpha. Every instinct screamed it. The power radiating from him even in his unconscious state made my wolf whimper and want to submit. I pushed down the reaction and focused on what I could see. Head trauma, possible internal bleeding, burns on his left arm where flames had licked through the broken window. Without proper treatment, he'd be dead within minutes. Come on, I muttered, hooking my arms under his shoulders. Don't you dare die on me. He was dead weight as I hauled him from the wreckage, my boots slipping on loose gravel. We'd barely cleared the vehicle when the gas tank exploded, the shockwave throwing us both to the ground. I shielded his body with mine as debris rained down around us. When the ringing in my ears subsided, I pressed my stethoscope to his chest. His heartbeat was erratic, weakening with each passing second. No time to get him to the hospital. He needed healing now. I placed my hands on his chest and let my power flow into him. Warm golden light emanated from my palms as I pushed healing energy through his system, mending torn vessels, reducing the swelling in his brain, knitting damaged tissue back together. The process left me drained, sweat beading on my forehead despite the mountain chill. But his breathing steadied, and the worst of his injuries began to close. His eyes fluttered open, startling green eyes that seemed to look right through me. Easy, I said softly. You've been in an accident. Can you tell me your name? He blinked slowly, confusion clouding his features. I don't. His voice was rough, strained. Where am I? Highway 9, about 10 miles outside Millbrook. I helped him sit up carefully, noting how he moved like everything hurt. What's the last thing you remember? He was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands like they belonged to someone else. Nothing, he whispered. I don't remember anything. My heart sank. Head trauma could cause temporary memory loss, but something about his expression suggested this was more serious. What about your name? Do you know who you are? He shook his head slowly. No. It's all empty. I studied his face, searching for any sign of deception. But all I saw was genuine confusion and fear. Whatever had happened to him, the trauma had stolen more than just his memories, it had stolen his identity. Okay, I said, making a decision I'd probably regret. Let's get you somewhere safe. I'm Dr. Maya Thornfield. I run a clinic in town. Maya, he repeated, like he was testing how the name felt on his tongue. Thank you for saving me. As I helped him to his feet, I caught sight of something glinting in the wreckage. A silver medallion, partially melted but still recognizable. My blood ran cold. The Shadowmere Pack symbol. I'd just saved the life of someone from the most ruthless pack in the territory. The same pack that had been expanding their influence through intimidation and violence. The same pack whose alpha, Gabriel Nightshade, was known for his cruelty and absolute control over his wolves. But looking at this man, confused, vulnerable, stripped of whatever power he'd once wielded, I couldn't bring myself to abandon him. Memory loss or not, he was still someone who needed help. And I was still a healer who couldn't turn away from suffering. "Come on," I said, guiding him toward my truck. "Let's get you checked out properly." As we climbed the slope together, I told myself this was just another patient. Another stranger who needed medical attention. I had no idea I'd just invited a predator into my carefully ordered world. And I had no idea that he would change everything. Chapter 2. My clinic's fluorescent lights hummed overhead as I guided my mysterious patient through the back entrance. The familiar scent of antiseptic and herbs should have been comforting, but tonight it felt like a thin barrier against the chaos I'd just invited inside. "Sit here," I instructed, pointing to the examination table in room 1. He moved carefully, favoring his left side where burns had marked his arm during the crash. Even injured and confused, he carried himself with an unconscious authority that made my wolf nervous. I busied myself gathering supplies, bandages, antiseptic, a flashlight to check his pupils. Standard concussion protocol. Nothing about this situation felt standard, though. "This is quite a setup," he said, looking around the room with genuine curiosity. "You must treat it a lot differently, patience." His pause before the word patience told me he'd noticed the silver-lined cabinets, the mountain ash sachets hanging in the corners, the specialized equipment designed for supernatural physiology. Most humans wouldn't recognize the signs, but he was clearly more observant than his amnesia suggested. "Millbrook has a diverse population," I said carefully, pulling on latex gloves. "I treat whoever needs help." He nodded slowly. "No questions asked?" "Medical ethics don't change based on species." I approached with the flashlight. "This might be bright. I need to check for signs of brain trauma." He held still as I examined his pupils, but I could feel the tension radiating from him. Up close, I noticed details I'd missed at the crash site. Old scars along his knuckles, a faded bite mark on his collarbone, the kind of calluses that came from weapons training. Whatever he'd forgotten about himself, his body remembered violence. "Pupils are reactive," I murmured, making notes on his chart. "That's good. How's your vision? Any double images or blurriness?" "Clear." His voice was rough but steady. The headache's fading too. I moved to examine the burns on his arm, carefully cutting away the singed fabric of his expensive shirt. The skin underneath was already healing, faster than human normal, but slower than a healthy werewolf should manage. "Your healing seems sluggish," I observed. "Are you on any medications? Have you been sick recently?" He was quiet for so long I looked up to find him staring at his hands again. "I don't know," he whispered. "I don't know anything about myself. What if there's a reason I can't remember? What if I'm someone terrible?" The vulnerability in his voice caught me off guard. I'd treated plenty of amnesia patients over the years, and the fear was always the same. Not just of the unknown, but of what they might discover about themselves. "Memory loss after head trauma is more common than you'd think," I said gently, applying antibiotic ointment to his burns. "In most cases, memories return gradually as the brain heals." "And in the other cases?" I met his eyes. "We'll deal with that if it happens." He studied my face for a moment, something shifting in his expression. "You're not afraid of me." It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "Should I be?" "I don't know. But most people." He trailed off, frowning. "I think most people are afraid of me. Even without memories, I can feel it. Like there's something dark waiting just beneath the surface." I finished bandaging his arm, considering his words. The Shadowmere Pack had a reputation for brutality, but looking at this man, lost and questioning his own nature, I found it hard to reconcile him with the stories I'd heard. Sometimes the things we're most afraid of about ourselves aren't as terrible as we imagine, I said. And sometimes the person we become is more important than who we used to be. Before he could respond, the clinic's front bell chimed. I froze. It was nearly midnight. No one should be here. Stay quiet, I whispered, moving toward the door. Heavy footsteps echoed through the waiting room, accompanied by voices I didn't recognize. Crash somewhere along the mountain road. The tracker went dead about 10 miles from here. Spread out. Check the hospitals, clinics, anywhere he might have gone for treatment. My patient's head snapped up, his entire body going rigid. Hide, he breathed, and for a moment his voice carried an authority that made my wolf want to obey without question. This is my clinic, I whispered back. I don't hide from anyone. But even as I said it, I was already moving toward the supply closet, pulling him with me. Whatever instinct had made him want to hide felt right to me too. We crammed into the small space just as the examination room door opened. Through the slats in the closet door, I could see two men in dark clothing searching the room. One was tall and lean with predatory yellow eyes. The other was built like a mountain, his face marked with ritual scars. Someone was definitely here, the lean one said, sniffing the air. Fresh blood, antiseptic. And her scent. Dr. Thornfield, the scarred man rumbled. Marcus said she was useful. Heals anyone who can pay, no pack affiliations. My patient's hand found mine in the darkness, his fingers cold despite his fever. I could feel him trembling, not with fear, but with something else. Recognition. If he came here, she would have helped him, the lean man continued. The question is whether she's hiding him, or if he's already moved on. Check the back rooms. I'll search her office. Their footsteps moved away, but we stayed frozen in the cramped space. My patient's breathing had gone shallow, and I could feel his pulse racing where our skin touched. Do you know them? I whispered, barely making a sound. He shook his head, but his eyes said otherwise. Something about those voices had triggered a reaction, muscle memory, even if conscious recollection remained buried. We waited in tense silence as the men ransacked my clinic. They were thorough but not destructive, searching like professionals who knew how to find what they wanted without leaving obvious evidence of their presence. After what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes, their voices faded toward the front of the building. No sign of him here. But she's definitely treating someone tonight. Marcus will want to question her. Later. Right now we need to expand the search grid. He couldn't have gotten far on foot. The front door slammed, and an engine started in the parking lot. We stayed hidden until the sound faded completely into the night. When we finally emerged from the closet, my patient was pale and shaking. They were looking for me. Seems that way. I moved to the window, checking to make sure they were really gone. Any idea why? No, but... He pressed his palms against his temples. When I heard their voices, something inside me wanted to run. Like every instinct I had was screaming danger. I studied his face in the dim light. Whatever he'd forgotten, his subconscious mind still recognized a threat when it heard one. You can't go back to wherever you came from, I said. Not until you remember more about who you are and why those men are hunting you. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. I moved toward the door. There's an apartment upstairs. Basic, but private. You can stay there until we figure this out. He followed me toward the staircase, but paused at the bottom step. Maya? I turned back to find him watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Thank you, he said quietly. For saving me. For trusting me even when you don't know who I am. Something in his voice made my chest tight. What should I call you? Until your memory comes back. He considered this for a moment. The name Ethan feels familiar. Not quite right, but close enough. Ethan it is. I started up the stairs, trying to ignore how naturally his chosen name fell from my lips. Come on. You need rest, and I need to figure out who just turned my clinic into a crime scene. As we climbed toward the small apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just made a decision that would change everything. I'd harbored a fugitive from what appeared to be a very dangerous pack, and I still didn't know if he was a victim or something far more complicated. But as I glanced back at Ethan, This mysterious man who looked at me like I was the first kind thing he'd encountered in a very long time. I realized I didn't care. I was already in too deep to turn back now. Chapter 3. The morning sun streamed through my apartment windows as I made coffee, trying to pretend everything was normal. Downstairs, I could hear Ethan moving around the guest space, careful footsteps that spoke of someone trying not to disturb anyone else. My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant Jenny. 3 appointments canceled this morning. Words getting around that the clinic was visited last night. I cursed under my breath. In a small supernatural community like Millbrook, news traveled faster than wildfire. If people thought my clinic wasn't safe, I'd lose the trust I'd spent 3 years building. A soft knock on my door interrupted my brooding. "Come in," I called. Ethan appeared in the doorway, looking uncertain. He'd changed out of his ruined clothes into spare scrubs I'd left for him, and somehow they made him seem less intimidating. More human. "I made coffee," I said, gesturing to the pot. "Help yourself." He poured a cup and added sugar with a focused concentration of someone relearning basic tasks. "I've been thinking about last night," he said. "Those men who are looking for me. I think I should leave. You've already done more than enough." "And where?" I settled onto my couch with my own mug. "You don't have money, identification, or memories. Plus, whoever those people were, they seemed pretty determined to find you." He sat across from me, cradling his coffee like it was anchoring him to the present. I could have done something terrible. What if they're hunting me for good reason? I studied his face, the genuine worry in his green eyes, the way his hands trembled slightly when he thought about his past. "What does your gut tell you?" "That I'm dangerous." The words came out flat, matter of fact. Even without memories, I can feel it. Like there's something violent sleeping just beneath the surface. "Violence doesn't make someone evil," I said carefully. "Sometimes it makes them a protector. Or a predator." The rawness in his voice made my chest ache. I'd treated enough trauma victims to recognize the signs. Someone grappling with parts of themselves they couldn't understand or control. My phone rang, interrupting the moment. The caller ID made my stomach drop. Marcus Steele, Alpha of the Shadowmere Pack. Ethan noticed my reaction immediately. "What is it?" "Nothing," I lied, declining the call. But it rang again within seconds. This time I answered. "Dr. Thornfield." "Maya." Marcus's voice was smooth as silk and twice as dangerous. "I hope you slept well." "What do you want, Marcus?" "Direct as always." "I admire that about you." I could hear the smile in his voice. "I'm calling about a missing pack member. We believe he may have sought medical attention after a car accident last night." I met Ethan's eyes. He'd gone completely still, every muscle tense like he was preparing to fight or flee. "I treat a lot of patients," I said evenly. "What makes you think I've seen this particular person?" "Because you're the only qualified healer within 50 miles who doesn't ask questions." His tone remained pleasant, but I heard the steel underneath. "My wolves searched your clinic last night. Very thorough of them. Breaking and entering is still illegal, even for pack alphas." Marcus chuckled. Now. "They knocked first. You just weren't there to answer." Ethan was shaking his head frantically, mouthing no at me. But something in his terrified expression told me this wasn't just about self-preservation. He was afraid for me. "I haven't seen any Shadowmere wolves," I said. "Injured or otherwise." The pause stretched long enough to make me nervous. "You know, Maya, you've built quite a reputation in Millbrook. Neutral healer serves everyone equally. It would be a shame if something happened to compromise that reputation." The threat was clear. "Are you threatening me, Marcus?" "I'm offering you a choice. If you're harboring my missing wolf, return him to me, and we'll forget this ever happened. If you're not." Another pause. "Well, I'm sure you understand the importance of community trust in your line of work." The line went dead. I set the phone down with hands that weren't quite steady. Ethan was watching me with an expression of horror and something that might have been recognition. "That was him, wasn't it?" he said quietly. "The alpha they work for." "Marcus Steele. He runs the Shadowmere Pack." I moved to the window, checking the street below. And apparently you're one of his wolves. I don't feel like I belong to anyone. The quiet conviction in his voice made me turn back to him. What do you feel like? He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee. Like I've been caged for a very long time, and I'm just now remembering what freedom tastes like. Something in my chest clenched at his words. I'd felt the same way 3 years ago when I'd finally broken free from my own controlling alpha. The desperate hunger for autonomy, the fear that it could be taken away at any moment. Marcus won't give up, I said. He's not the type to let pack members just disappear. Then I'll leave. Tonight, before he can trace me back to you.
No.
The word came out sharper than I intended. Running won't solve anything. It'll just confirm his suspicions that I'm hiding something. Ethan stood, moving to the window beside me. This close, I could smell his scent, pine and storms and something uniquely him that made my wolf restless. Then what do you suggest? I watched a black SUV cruise slowly down the street, its occupants clearly surveying the clinic. We give him what he expects to see. I don't understand. Marcus is expecting you to either surface or for me to crack under pressure. I turn to face him. But there's a third option. You stay hidden, and I convince him you were never here.
How?
A plan was forming in my mind, risky, but potentially effective. I treat other injured supernatural creatures all the time. If I can muddy the scent trail, make it look like I had a different patient last night. You want to lie to an alpha. Ethan's voice was carefully neutral. Do you understand how dangerous that is? Do you understand how dangerous it is for me to do nothing? I met his eyes. Marcus made it clear that my clinic's reputation is on the line. If I lose that, I lose everything I've built here. He was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. Why are you doing this? Really? You don't know me. I could be exactly as terrible as they say. It was a fair question. Why was I risking everything for a stranger? But looking at him, this man who apologized for existing, who worried about being a burden, who seemed genuinely terrified of his own potential for darkness, I couldn't bring myself to believe he was the monster Marcus was hunting. Because 3 years ago, someone gave me a chance when I needed it most, I said quietly. And because sometimes the person we think we are isn't the person we actually have to be. His expression softened. Maya. A crash from downstairs cut him off. We both froze, listening to the sound of heavy footsteps moving through the clinic. They're back, I whispered. This time, they weren't bothering with stealth. I could hear equipment being moved, drawers being opened and slammed shut. They were sending a message, cooperation or consequences. I have to go down there, I said. If they find you up here, they'll kill us both. Ethan caught my arm. Is there another way out? I nodded toward the back window. Fire escape leads to the alley behind the building. Come with me. I can't. If I'm not here, they'll know something's wrong. I pulled free of his grip.
Go.
I'll handle this. Maya, no. You don't understand what they're capable of. And you don't understand what I'm capable of. I moved toward the door. Trust me, I've dealt with worse than Marcus Steele. It was a lie, but a necessary one. The truth was, Marcus terrified me. But letting Ethan see that fear would only make him more determined to stay and protect me, which would get us both killed. I'll find you, he said quietly. When this is over, I'll find you. I looked back at him one last time. This mysterious man who'd crashed into my life and turned everything upside down in less than 24 hours. I'll be counting on it, I said. Then I headed downstairs to face the monster who claimed to own him. Chapter 4. I walked down the stairs with my chin held high, every step deliberate and calm. The sounds of destruction grew louder. Metal clanging, glass breaking, furniture being overturned. They weren't just searching anymore. They were sending a message. Marcus Steele stood in the center of my waiting room like he owned it, watching his wolves tear apart everything I'd worked for. He was exactly what you'd expect from a Shadowmere alpha, tall, imposing, with silver-streaked dark hair and eyes like winter storms. Power radiated from him in waves that made my knees want to buckle. Dr. Thornfield. He smiled when he saw me, all predatory charm. So good of you to join us. This is private property, I said, forcing my voice to remain steady. You have no right to be here. Rights are for those with the power to enforce them. He gestured to his wolves, who continued their systematic destruction of my clinic. I believe we discussed this on the phone. The lean wolf from last night emerged from my office carrying a stack of patient files. Nothing useful in the records, Alpha. No Shadowmere names from yesterday. Of course not, I said. I told you I haven't treated any of your pack members. Marcus tilted his head, studying me with the intensity of a predator sizing up prey. And yet my wolves detected fresh scent trails. Male werewolf. Injured. Definitely here within the last 12 hours. I treat a lot of werewolves. I moved carefully toward my reception desk, trying to put some distance between us. Millbrook has several packs in the area. None as important as mine. His smile turned cold. Tell me, Maya, may I call you Maya? What do you know about loyalty? The question felt like a trap. I know it has to be earned. Interesting perspective. He began to circle me slowly, each step deliberate. In my experience, loyalty is about understanding consequences. The price of betrayal versus the rewards of cooperation. One of his wolves crashed through the door to my supply room, the sound making me flinch. Marcus noticed the reaction immediately. Nervous, he asked. That's understandable. Change can be frightening, especially when you've grown comfortable with independence. What do you want from me? The words came out sharper than I intended. What I've always wanted. Order. Control. A community where everyone knows their place and follows the rules. He stopped directly in front of me. Your little clinic has been operating outside pack authority for too long. My blood ran cold. The clinic serves everyone. That's the point. The point, Marcus said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, is that you answer to no one. You heal whoever you choose, harbor whoever you want, make decisions that affect the supernatural balance of this entire territory without consulting anyone with actual authority. I follow medical ethics. You follow your own judgment, which works fine when your judgment aligns with pack interests. His eyes gleamed. But what happens when it doesn't? The scarred wolf emerged from the basement, shaking his head. Nothing down there either, Alpha. Marcus nodded, then turned back to me. Here's what's going to happen, Maya. You're going to become an official Shadowmere healer. Under my protection, with my backing, following my guidelines.
No.
The word came out before I could stop it. The room went dead silent, every wolf freezing mid-destruction to stare at me. I just refused a direct offer from one of the most powerful alphas in the territory. Marcus's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. I'm sorry. Did you just tell me no? I don't work for packs, I said, forcing my voice to remain steady. I work for patients. Anyone who needs healing gets it, regardless of their politics or pack affiliation. How admirably naive. He stepped closer, crowding my space. And what happens when your idealistic little clinic becomes a haven for rogues? For criminals running from pack justice? What happens when you heal the wrong person and they go on to hurt innocent wolves? That's not. It's exactly what's happening right now. His voice cracked like a whip. You're harboring a dangerous criminal, Maya. Someone who belongs to me. Someone who's forgotten important lessons about loyalty and consequence. I met his stare, refusing to back down. I told you I haven't seen any Shadowmere wolves. You're lying. Prove it. The challenge hung in the air between us. Around the room, his wolves had gone perfectly still, sensing the shift in their alpha's mood. I could feel violence gathering like a storm about to break. Marcus smiled, but it never reached his eyes. Very well. Let's discuss proof. He nodded to one of his wolves, who disappeared into the back rooms. Seconds later, I heard the distinctive sound of something heavy being dragged across the floor. They returned with Mrs. Patterson, the elderly human woman who cleaned my clinic twice a week. She was conscious but terrified, duct tape covering her mouth and her hands zip-tied behind her back. No, I breathed, taking a step forward.
Ah.
Marcus held up a hand. Let's not be hasty. Mrs. Patterson was kind enough to let my wolves into the building last night. Apparently, she has a key for emergencies. Terror and guilt crashed over me. They'd used an innocent woman to gain access to my clinic, and now she was paying the price for my defiance. She doesn't know anything, I said desperately. She's human. She just cleans the building. But she sees things, doesn't she? Notice unusual activity. Broken glass in the parking lot, perhaps? The scent of smoke and blood. Marcus circled behind Mrs. Patterson, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder that made her whimper. Humans are remarkably observant when they need to be. Let her go. Your fight is with me. My fight is with the criminal you're protecting. His fingers tightened on Mrs. Patterson's shoulder. Return him to me, and she goes home to her grandchildren. Continue lying, and she becomes an unfortunate casualty of your poor judgment. I stared at the woman who'd brought me homemade cookies every Christmas, who'd asked about my health when I worked too many late nights, who'd never done anything wrong except trust the wrong person with her spare key. I can't give you someone I don't have, I said quietly. Marcus sighed, like I was a disappointing student who'd failed an easy test. I was hoping you'd be reasonable about this. He nodded to the scarred wolf, who produced a silver blade from his jacket. The metal gleamed under the fluorescent lights as he moved to stand beside Mrs. Patterson. Last chance, Maya. Where is Gabriel Nightshade? The name hit me like a physical blow. Gabriel Nightshade, Marcus's right hand, his enforcer, the wolf responsible for the Shadowmere Pack's brutal reputation. I'd heard stories about him for years. The Alpha's weapon, his monster. And I'd been calling him Ethan. I can see you recognize the name, Marcus said, watching my reaction carefully.
Good.
That means you understand what you're dealing with. Gabriel is my beta, my most trusted soldier. He's also completely unstable without proper guidance. The room spun around me. I'd saved Gabriel Nightshade. I'd let him into my home, made him coffee, worried about his well-being. The most dangerous wolf on the West Coast had been sleeping 20 feet away from me. Now do you understand why he needs to come home? Marcus continued. Without his memories, without his training, he's a loaded weapon with no safety. He could hurt innocent people. He could hurt you. I thought about Ethan, Gabriel, defending the Omega teenager from bullies. The gentleness in his voice when he'd comforted me. The way he'd insisted I stay safe while he faced the danger alone. He's not what you think he is, I said quietly. He's exactly what I made him to be. Marcus's voice hardened. And what I made him to be is mine. Mrs. Patterson made a muffled sound behind her gag, her eyes wide with terror. The silver blade pressed against her throat, not quite breaking skin, but close enough that I could smell the metal's burning effect on her human flesh. Choose, Maya. Your principles or her life. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of an impossible decision. Save an innocent woman by betraying someone who trusted me, or hold to my convictions and watch Mrs. Patterson die for my stubbornness. When I opened them again, Marcus was smiling. I can see you've made your choice, he said. Smart girl. Now, where is Gabriel?
Chapter 5.
He's gone, I said quietly, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. Gabriel left this morning. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Left for where? I don't know. He said something about heading north, maybe trying to piece together his memories. The lie flowed easier than I'd expected. He was afraid of what he might have done, afraid of who might be looking for him. You let him go. Marcus's voice was dangerously soft. You treated my beta and then let him wander off into the wilderness, confused and vulnerable. He's a grown man. I couldn't force him to stay. I kept my eyes on Mrs. Patterson, watching the terror in her face. I gave him medical attention and discharged him. That's what doctors do. Marcus studied me for a long moment, then nodded to the scarred wolf. The silver blade moved away from Mrs. Patterson's throat, but didn't disappear entirely. Tell me exactly what happened, Marcus commanded. From the beginning. I took a breath, weaving truth with necessary fiction. I found him around midnight, about 10 miles up the mountain highway. His car had crashed and caught fire. He was unconscious, badly injured. And you brought him here.
To save his life, yes.
He had severe head trauma, burns, and internal bleeding. Without immediate treatment, he would have died. Marcus began pacing, his movements sharp and predatory. What did he remember? Nothing. Complete amnesia. He didn't even know his own name. I watched Marcus's expression carefully. He called himself Ethan. A muscle in Marcus's jaw twitched. How convenient. Head trauma can cause. I know what head trauma can cause. He stopped pacing to stare at me. What I want to know is what you told him. What poison you whispered in his ear while he was vulnerable. I told him he was safe. That I would help him heal. The words came out steadier than I felt. Nothing more. And he believed that? Gabriel Nightshade, my most suspicious, paranoid enforcer, just trusted a strange doctor without question? He wasn't Gabriel Nightshade. He was a scared, confused man with no memory of who he was supposed to be. I met Marcus's stare. Maybe that's who he really is underneath all your training. The temperature in the room dropped another 10 degrees. Marcus's wolves stirred restlessly, sensing their alpha's rising fury. Gabriel is what I made him, Marcus said quietly. Strong, loyal, effective. Without that structure, he's nothing but a dangerous animal. Or, he's free to choose who he wants to be. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Marcus went very still, his eyes locking onto mine with laser focus. Free, he repeated, like the word was foreign. You think freedom is what Gabriel needs? I think everyone deserves the right to make their own choices. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. How wonderfully naive. Tell me, Maya, do you know what Gabriel did before he lost his memory? I stayed silent, but he continued anyway. 3 weeks ago, he single-handedly destroyed a rival pack that was encroaching on our territory. 15 wolves died in one night. He came home covered in their blood, and do you know what he said to me? My stomach clenched, but I forced myself not to react. He said it felt good, that he'd finally found his purpose. Marcus smiled coldly. That's the man you're protecting. That's the monster you think deserves freedom. People can change. Not Gabriel. He is what he is, and what he is belongs to me. Marcus nodded to his wolves. Search the building again. Every room, every closet, every possible hiding place. I told you he's not here. Then you won't mind us looking. They spread out through the clinic with military precision. I listened to doors slamming, furniture being moved, walls being tested for hidden spaces. My heart hammered against my ribs as they moved closer to areas where Gabriel might have left traces of his presence. One of the wolves called out from upstairs. Alpha, found something. Marcus's smile turned predatory. Bring it down. The wolf returned carrying the hospital scrubs I'd given Gabriel, along with the spare towels from the bathroom. Fresh scent on these. Male werewolf. Definitely Shadowmere bloodline. Well, well. Marcus held up the scrubs, inhaling deeply. It seems Gabriel was here more recently than you indicated, Maya. Those could be from any patient.
No.
His voice cut through my protests like a blade. These smell like my beta, like home, like a pack. He dropped the clothes and stepped closer to me. Where is he? I don't know. The scarred wolf pressed the silver blade back against Mrs. Patterson's throat. This time it broke skin, and the smell of burning flesh filled the room. She made a muffled scream behind her gag. Stop. I lunged forward, but 2 wolves caught my arms, holding me back. She doesn't know anything. Then tell me what I want to know. Marcus's voice was perfectly calm. Where is Gabriel Nightshade? I stared at Mrs. Patterson's terrified face, at the thin line of blood trickling down her neck. This woman had never hurt anyone. She volunteered at the animal shelter, brought soup to sick neighbors, and remembered everyone's birthday. She didn't deserve to die, because I'd made the choice to help someone. But Gabriel didn't deserve to be dragged back to a life he couldn't remember choosing either. I told you, I said desperately.
He left. He's gone.
Marcus sighed. I was hoping you'd be reasonable. He nodded to the scarred wolf, whose blade pressed deeper. Mrs. Patterson's muffled scream filled the room. Wait, The voice came from the clinic's back entrance. Everyone turned to see Gabriel standing in the doorway, hands raised in surrender. Let her go, Marcus. Your fight is with me. Relief and terror crashed over me in equal measure. He'd come back. He'd risked everything to save an innocent woman, just like I'd somehow known he would. Marcus's entire demeanor changed, fury melting into something that might have been relief. Gabriel, there you are. Let the woman go, Gabriel repeated, stepping slowly into the room. She's not part of this. Of course. Marcus nodded, and the scarred wolf released Mrs. Patterson. She collapsed to her knees, sobbing behind her gag. I never intended to hurt her. I was simply trying to locate my missing beta. Gabriel's eyes found mine across the room. In them I saw recognition not just of who he was, but of who Marcus was. His memories had returned. Hello, Alpha, Gabriel said quietly. I remember now. Marcus's smile was radiant. Welcome home, my boy. Welcome home. Chapter 6. Gabriel stepped into the clinic, like he was walking into a tomb. Everything about his posture had changed. The uncertainty was gone, replaced by the predatory grace I'd heard whispered about in supernatural circles. This was Gabriel Nightshade, Marcus's weapon, the monster who'd killed 15 wolves in a single night. But when his eyes met mine, I saw something else.
Pain.
Regret. And underneath it all, a desperate plea for understanding. Marcus, Gabriel said, his voice carrying the deadly calm I'd never heard before. Release Dr. Thornfield's employee. She's suffered enough for my mistakes. Of course. Marcus gestured, and his wolves freed Mrs. Patterson from her restraints. She stumbled toward the door, sobbing with relief. Send her home, boys. And make sure she understands the importance of discretion. 2 wolves escorted Mrs. Patterson out, leaving just Marcus, Gabriel, the scarred enforcer, and me in the destroyed waiting room. I have to say, Gabriel, you look well. Marcus circled his beta like a buyer examining prize livestock. Dr. Thornfield's care has been effective. She saved my life, Gabriel said quietly. After the crash, she could have left me to die. Instead, she risked everything to help a stranger. How touching. Marcus's smile was razor sharp. And what did you tell her about yourself? About us? Nothing. I remembered nothing until an hour ago. I watched Gabriel's face carefully. He was lying. I could see it in the micro-expressions he probably didn't know he was making. His memories had returned earlier than he was admitting. Interesting. Marcus stopped his circling to study Gabriel's face. And what triggered the return of your memory? Gabriel's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly.
Fear.
When I realized you were threatening innocent people to get to me. Fear has always been an excellent teacher. Marcus turned to me with mock sympathy. I'm afraid Dr. Thornfield has been somewhat dishonest with you, Gabriel. She knew exactly who you were from the beginning. Gabriel went very still. What? She recognized the Shadowmere medallion at the crash site. She's known all along that you're my beta. Marcus's voice took on a poisonous sweetness. She's been playing you, my boy, using your vulnerability to turn you against your own pack. That's not true, I said, but Gabriel wasn't looking at me anymore. Something cold and dangerous had entered his expression. Is it? Gabriel's voice was soft, deadly. Did you know who I was, Maya? The way he said my name made my blood run cold. This wasn't Ethan asking, this was Gabriel Nightshade, and he was deciding whether I was a threat. Yes, I said quietly. I knew. The admission hung in the air like a death sentence. Gabriel's eyes never left my face as he processed the betrayal. You knew I was Shadowmere, he said. You knew I was his. I knew you were running from something. I knew you were scared. I took a step toward him, then stopped when his expression turned warning sharp. I didn't know you were Marcus's beta until this morning. But you knew I was dangerous. Yes. And you helped me anyway. Yes. Marcus watched our exchange with obvious satisfaction. You see, Gabriel? This is what happens when you trust outsiders. They use your weaknesses against you. Gabriel was quiet for a long moment, his green eyes searching my face. I could see him weighing everything, my lies, my choices, the reasons behind both. Why? He asked finally. Because the person I saved wasn't Gabriel Nightshade, I said. He was someone lost and afraid who needed help. Someone who defended teenagers from bullies and worried about being a burden. Someone who made coffee hearts and apologized for existing. Someone who doesn't exist, Marcus interjected smoothly. Gabriel, you're allowing sentiment to cloud your judgment. This woman has been manipulating you from the moment you woke up in her clinic. Have I? I looked directly at Gabriel. When I had the chance to turn you over to Marcus on the phone, what did I do? Gabriel's expression flickered. You protected me. When his wolves searched the clinic, what did I do? You hid me. When he threatened to destroy my reputation, my clinic, everything I've built here, what did I do? Gabriel's voice was barely a whisper. You chose me. Marcus's satisfied expression began to crack around the edges. Gabriel, you're not thinking clearly. The trauma, the memory loss, it's affected your judgment. Has it? Gabriel turned to face his alpha, and I saw something I'd never expected. Defiance. Or am I thinking clearly for the first time in years? The temperature in the room plummeted. Marcus's pleasant mask slipped entirely, revealing the predator underneath. Careful, Gabriel, he said softly. You're walking a very dangerous line. Am I? Or am I finally asking the right questions? Gabriel stepped closer to Marcus, and even I could feel the power rolling off both alphas. Like, why you never told me I had a choice?
Choice.
Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. You chose to serve me. You chose loyalty, strength, purpose. I chose to survive. There's a difference. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. His composure cracked completely, revealing raw fury beneath. You ungrateful. He caught himself, forcing his expression back to cold control. I made you, Gabriel. I took a broken, worthless Omega and turned you into something powerful. Something feared. Something that kills for you, without question. Something that protects our pack. Our territory. Our way of life. Marcus's voice rose with each word. And now you want to throw it all away for what? A woman who's been lying to you since the moment you met? Gabriel looked back at me, and I saw the war playing out in his expression. The pull of old loyalty against something newer and more fragile. She lied to protect me, he said finally. You lied to control me. There's a difference. Marcus went very still. When he spoke again, his voice was arctic. I see. The good doctor has been very thorough in her rehabilitation of you. She showed me who I could be without you, Gabriel said. Someone who chooses kindness over fear. Someone who protects the innocent instead of terrorizing them. Someone weak. Someone free. The word hung between them like a thrown gauntlet. Marcus's eyes blazed with alpha fury, and I could feel violence gathering in the air like a storm about to break. Gabriel, Marcus said carefully, you're going to walk out of here with me right now. You're going to come home, submit to pack discipline for your insubordination, and we're going to forget this conversation ever happened. Gabriel was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something that made my heart stop. He smiled. No, he said simply. Marcus's roar of fury shook the building's windows. Chapter 7. Marcus's roar shattered every piece of glass left intact in my clinic. The sound was pure alpha fury, the kind that made weaker wolves submit or flee. But Gabriel didn't flinch. He stood his ground, meeting his former alpha's rage with steady calm. You forget yourself, Marcus snarled, power rolling off him in waves. I am your alpha, your creator. You will obey. You are my alpha, Gabriel corrected quietly. Past tense. The scarred enforcer moved to flank Gabriel, but stopped when Gabriel's attention shifted to him. Even without pack bonds, Gabriel's presence filled the room with dangerous promise. Stand down, Tobias, Gabriel said without looking away from Marcus. This doesn't concern you. Tobias glanced between the two alphas, uncertainty flickering across his scarred features. For a moment, I thought he might actually obey Gabriel instead of Marcus. Then Marcus's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Tobias. Restrain him. The command carried alpha compulsion, leaving Tobias no choice. He lunged toward Gabriel with supernatural speed, claws extended and fangs bared. Gabriel moved like liquid lightning. He caught Tobias mid-leap, using the enforcer's momentum to slam him into the wall with bone-crushing force. Tobias crumpled to the floor, unconscious before he hit the ground. Impressive, Marcus said, his rage cooling into something more calculating. Your skills haven't deteriorated during your little vacation. Neither has my judgment. Gabriel straightened, not even breathing hard from the brief fight. Leave, Marcus. Take your wolves and go. I'm afraid I can't do that. You see, you know too much about pack operations. Security protocols. Territory agreements. Marcus began circling again, but this time Gabriel turned to keep him in sight. I can't have that information walking around in an uncontrolled asset. Uncontrolled asset. Gabriel's voice was flat. Is that what I am to you? It's what you've always been. A weapon.
A tool.
Very effective, but ultimately replaceable. Marcus's smile was cruel. Though I admit, I'd prefer not to break you. You're expensive to replace. I watched the exchange with growing horror. Marcus was talking about Gabriel like he was equipment, valuable but disposable if necessary. What about our history? Gabriel asked. Years of service. Loyalty. Does none of that matter? Of course it matters. That's why I'm offering you one last chance. Marcus stopped his circling to face Gabriel directly.
Submit.
Return to the pack. Accept discipline for your insubordination, and we can forget this unpleasantness. And if I refuse? Marcus's expression turned regretful, but his eyes remained cold. Then you become a rogue. A threat to pack security. And threats must be eliminated. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. I could feel my heart hammering against my ribs as the full implications sank in. Marcus wasn't just threatening to take Gabriel back. He was threatening to kill him. You'd murder your own beta, Gabriel said quietly. For choosing freedom. I'd eliminate a security risk. There's a difference. Marcus pulled out his phone, typing a quick message. I've just called for backup. 6 wolves, all armed with silver weapons. They'll be here in 10 minutes. Gabriel's jaw tightened, but he didn't look afraid. If anything, he seemed resigned. You think 6 wolves are enough? 6 wolves plus silver weapons plus me? Marcus tucked his phone away. Yes, Gabriel. Even for you, that's enough. I couldn't stay silent anymore. There has to be another way. Some kind of compromise. Dr. Thornfield. Marcus turned to me with mock sympathy. I'm afraid you've misunderstood the situation. This isn't a negotiation. It's a retrieval operation. You're talking about killing someone for wanting their freedom. I'm talking about protecting my pack from a dangerous rogue. His expression hardened. Something you should understand, given your own history. My blood turned to ice. What? Oh yes, I know all about Dr. Maya Thornfield, formerly Maya Redwood, of the Colorado Redwood Pack. Interesting how you changed your name after running away from your own alpha. Gabriel's attention snapped to me, confusion and concern warring in his expression. Marcus smiled at the reaction. Didn't she tell you, Gabriel? Your precious healer is a runaway herself. Fled her pack 3 years ago after refusing an arranged mating. Marcus's voice took on a mocking tone. Something about wanting to choose her own destiny. Sound familiar? Maya? Gabriel's voice was soft, but I could hear the questions underneath. It's true, I said quietly. I ran from my pack. From an alpha who wanted to use me as a political pawn. How romantic, Marcus said. 2 runaways finding each other. Unfortunately, romance doesn't change reality. Gabriel is Shadowmere property, and property returns to its owner. I'm not property, Gabriel said, his voice carrying deadly calm. And neither is she. You're whatever I say you are. Marcus's patience was clearly wearing thin. You have 5 minutes to decide, Gabriel. Submit and live, or resist and die. But either way, you're not leaving here with her. The sound of vehicles pulling into the parking lot cut through the tension. Marcus's backup had arrived early. Time's up, Marcus said with satisfaction. What's it going to be, Gabriel? Gabriel looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Not the confused man who'd made coffee hearts, not the dangerous enforcer who'd killed 15 wolves, but something in between. Someone who'd found a middle ground between monster and victim. Maya, he said quietly, is there another way out of here? Back entranced through the storage room, I whispered. But Gabriel, you can't run forever. I'm not running. He moved toward me and Marcus tensed. I'm choosing. Gabriel, don't. Marcus's voice carried a warning. You're making a mistake you can't take back. No, Gabriel said, taking my hand. I'm making the first real choice of my life. He pulled me toward the storage room as the front door exploded inward. 6 wolves in tactical gear poured through, silver weapons gleaming in the fluorescent light. Stop them, Marcus roared. But Gabriel was already moving, dragging me through the storage room toward the back exit. Behind us, I could hear Marcus shouting orders, the heavy footsteps of pursuit, the sound of equipment being overturned. We burst through the back door into the alley behind the clinic. Gabriel's car, a sleek black sedan that definitely hadn't been there when I'd left earlier, sat running with the driver's door open. Get in, Gabriel ordered, pushing me toward the passenger seat. I climbed in as he slammed his door and threw the car into drive. We shot out of the alley just as Marcus's wolves reached the back entrance. Where are we going? I asked as Gabriel took a sharp turn onto the main road. Away from here. Somewhere we can figure out what comes next. He glanced in the rearview mirror. They'll follow us. Gabriel. I turned to study his profile as he drove. What Marcus said about me doesn't matter. His voice was firm. We all have things we're running from. What matters is what we're running toward. I wanted to believe him, but as I watched the lights of Millbrook fade behind us, I couldn't shake the feeling that our troubles were just beginning. Marcus Steele didn't strike me as the type to let his property go easily. And now we were both his fugitives. Chapter 8. We drove in tense silence for 30 minutes before Gabriel pulled into an abandoned gas station 20 miles outside Millbrook. The neon signs were dark, weeds growing through cracks in the pavement, but it offered cover from the main road. We need to switch cars, Gabriel said, scanning the empty lot. They'll have this one tracked within the hour. I looked around at the desolate landscape, nothing but pine trees and mountain shadows stretching into darkness. Switch to what? There's nothing here. Gabriel pulled out his phone and made a call. It's me. I need a favor. A pause. Clean car, untraceable plates, and somewhere safe to lay low for a few days. Another pause. Yeah, I know what I'm asking. He hung up and turned to me. Someone will be here in 20 minutes. Who? Better you don't know. The less you're involved in my world, the safer you'll be. He leaned back against the headrest, exhaustion finally showing on his face. I'm sorry, Maya, for all of this. You didn't choose to crash your car. No, but I chose to stay. I chose to let you help me even when I started remembering who I was. His voice was rough. I chose to drag you into this mess. I studied his profile in the dim light from the dashboard. When did your memories come back? Really? He was quiet for a long moment. 3 days ago. Fragments at first, then more. By yesterday morning, I remembered everything. The admission hit like a physical blow. You've been lying to me. Yes. For days. While I worried about you, while I stopped myself before I could say too much. While you what? His voice was soft. While I started caring about you. The words came out harsher than I intended. The real you, not the act you were putting on. Gabriel turned to face me fully. It wasn't an act, Maya. Not entirely. The confusion, the fear, the way I felt around you. That was real. The memories came back, but the person I'd become with you, that was real too. Which person is sitting here now? Gabriel the enforcer, or Ethan the lost man? Both. Neither. I don't know. He ran his hands through his hair in frustration. For 3 years I've been Marcus's weapon. I killed him, terrorized other packs, and enforced his will without question. That's who Gabriel Nightshade is. And Ethan? Ethan was who I could have been.
Who I wanted to be.
His eyes met mine in the darkness. Who I still want to be, if that's possible. The headlights of an approaching vehicle cut through our conversation. Gabriel tensed, hand moving to a gun I hadn't realized he was carrying. Relax. A familiar voice called as the car stopped. It's just me. I stared in shock as Jenny, my clinic assistant, got out of a battered pickup truck. Jenny? What are you doing here? She tossed a set of keys to Gabriel. Helping an old friend. You two know each other? I looked between them, confusion mixing with betrayal. Jenny used to run intel for Shadowmere, Gabriel explained. Before she decided pack life wasn't for her. Your Shadowmere? I felt like the ground was shifting beneath me. You've been working in my clinic for 2 years. Watching over you, actually. Jenny's expression was apologetic but firm. Gabriel asked me to keep an eye on the local supernatural community. You were just supposed to be another contact. But you became more than that, Gabriel said quietly. Jenny started sending me reports about your work. How you helped anyone who needed it, regardless of pack politics. How you'd rather lose money than turn away someone in need. I stared at him. You've been watching me for 2 years? Monitoring the area, he corrected. But yes, I knew about you long before the crash. The betrayal felt like ice in my veins. The crash wasn't an accident, was it? Gabriel's silence was answer enough. Jesus. I got out of the car, needing space to process what I was hearing. How much of this was planned? The crash was real, Gabriel said, following me. Someone tried to kill me, probably one of Marcus's rivals who wanted to weaken Shadowmere. But when I woke up in your clinic, you saw an opportunity. I saw a chance to disappear. To figure out who I was without Marcus's voice in my head. He moved closer, but I stepped back. The memory loss wasn't completely fake, Maya. The trauma scrambled things, made it easier to pretend I didn't remember. But you remembered enough to manipulate me. I remembered enough to want something different. His voice cracked slightly. You have to believe me. What happened between us, what I felt, that was real. Jenny cleared her throat. Hate to interrupt, but we need to move. Marcus has called in favors from 3 other packs. Half the territory will be hunting you by morning. Where's the truck going? I asked. Cabin about 60 miles north. Off the grid, stocked with supplies. Jenny handed Gabriel a duffel bag. Clean clothes, fake IDs, enough cash to get you across the border if needed. What about my clinic? My patients? Gone, Jenny said bluntly. Marcus torched it after you left. Told the authorities it was an electrical fire. The news hit me like a physical blow. 3 years of work, of building trust with the supernatural community, of creating something good. All gone because I'd chosen to help one person. I'm sorry, Gabriel said quietly. This is all my fault. Yes, it is. I turned to Jenny. Take me back to town. Maya.
No.
I cut Gabriel off. I helped you because I thought you were innocent. Because I thought you needed saving. But you've been playing games from the beginning. Not games. Strategy. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, they look pretty similar. I started walking toward Jenny's truck. Gabriel caught my arm. Where will you go? Marcus won't just let you disappear. That's my problem now, isn't it? It's our problem. He'll use you to get to me, or kill you to send a message. Either way, I'll handle it myself. I pulled free of his grip. I've been taking care of myself for 3 years without anyone's help. Maya, please. Let me protect you. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Protect me? You're the reason I need protection in the first place. The hurt that flashed across his face almost made me regret the words. Almost. I know you're angry, he said quietly. You have every right to be. But running off alone isn't going to solve anything. Neither is trusting someone who's been lying to me since day one. Jenny stepped between us. Okay, enough. You can work out your relationship drama later. Right now, we need to decide who's going where before Marcus's search teams find us. I looked at Gabriel one last time. This man who'd made me believe in second chances, who'd shown me gentleness in the middle of violence, who turned out to be just another manipulator in disguise. "Goodbye, Gabriel," I said quietly. "Or Ethan. Or whoever you really are." I started toward Jenny's truck, but Gabriel's voice stopped me. "Maya." When I turned back, his expression was raw with something that looked like pain. "For what it's worth, the man who fell in love with you, that was real. Everything else was just survival." The words hit harder than I wanted to admit, but I couldn't afford to care about his feelings anymore. Not when my entire life had just been burned to the ground by his choices. "It's worth nothing," I lied and got into the truck. As Jenny drove me away, I watched Gabriel disappear into the darkness, taking my heart with him. Chapter 9. 3 weeks after losing everything, I sat in a dingy motel room in Portland, staring at a laptop screen filled with job listings. Hospital positions, private practices, research facilities, all requiring references I couldn't provide and background checks I couldn't pass. Maya Thornfield was dead, burned up with her clinic. The woman typing on this laptop was Sarah Mitchell, according to the fake ID Jenny had slipped me before we parted ways. Sarah Mitchell had no medical degree, no supernatural contacts, and no future. My phone buzzed with another block number call. I'd been getting them for days, always silent when I answered, always from different numbers. Someone was tracking me, but whether it was Marcus or Gabriel, I couldn't tell. I let it go to voicemail and went back to my laptop. A knock at the door made me freeze. It was past midnight, and the motel wasn't exactly in a neighborhood where friendly visits were common. "Room service," a gravelly voice called. I hadn't ordered room service. I moved to the window, peering through the curtains at the parking lot. 3 black SUVs sat in spaces that had been empty 20 minutes ago. My heart hammered as I recognized the tactical formation. Marcus had found me. I grabbed my emergency bag, cash, fake ID, the gun Jenny had insisted I take, and headed for the bathroom window. It was small and high, but I'd climbed through worse. The front door exploded inward just as I squeezed through the window frame. I dropped into the alley behind the motel, rolling to absorb the impact, and came up running. Shouts erupted behind me as Marcus's wolves realized their prey had escaped. Heavy footsteps pounded after me, but I had a head start and 3 years of living cautiously had kept me in good shape. I made it 2 blocks before a familiar scent hit my nose. Pine and storms and something uniquely him. Gabriel. He stepped out of the shadows ahead of me, hands raised to show he was unarmed. "Maya, wait." I skidded to a stop, torn between relief and fury. He looked different, thinner, tired, with dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. "You led them to me," I accused, backing away.
No.
"I've been trying to stay ahead of them." He moved closer slowly, like approaching a spooked animal. "They're using pack networks to track you. Every supernatural contact you have, every favor you call in, Marcus has ears everywhere." "Then why are you here?" "Because I heard they were closing in. Because I couldn't let them take you without a fight." His eyes searched my face. "Because I've been going crazy wondering if you were safe." The sound of pursuit was getting closer. Gabriel's expression hardened as he listened to the approaching footsteps. "There's a safe house 6 blocks north," he said urgently. "Warded against tracking, stocked with supplies. You can." "I'm not going anywhere with you. Maya, please. We can fight about trust later. Right now, you need to survive." A howl echoed through the night, followed by others. They'd brought a full hunting pack. Gabriel's head snapped toward the sound, his expression going deadly serious. "That's at least 8 wolves. Trained trackers. You can't outrun them alone." "I can try." "You'll die trying." He moved closer despite my retreat. "Look, I know you don't trust me. I know I've given you every reason not to. But right now, I'm your best chance at living through the night." Another howl, closer this time. They'd picked up our scent trail. Gabriel pulled out his phone. "There's a car 2 blocks east. Silver Honda, keys under the passenger mat. Take it and drive north until you hit the interstate then." "What about you?" "I'm going to buy you time." He checked his weapons, a gun at his hip, silver knives strapped to his thighs. "Give you a chance to get away clean." "Gabriel, no." There are too many of them. Maybe. But I'm not letting Marcus take you. His eyes met mine, and I saw something there that made my chest tight. Not after everything I've already cost you. The first wolf appeared at the mouth of the alley, yellow eyes glowing in the streetlight. Then another. Then more, until we were surrounded by a semicircle of predators. Dr. Maya Thornfield. Marcus's voice carried through the darkness before he stepped into view. How nice to see you again. Gabriel moved to put himself between Marcus and me, his entire posture shifting into the dangerous predator I'd heard stories about. Hello, Marcus, Gabriel said calmly. Still having trouble keeping track of your property? Only the defective pieces. Marcus's smile was cold. But I've learned from my mistakes. This time, I'm not offering choices. Meaning Dr. Thornfield is coming with me whether she wants to or not. Her healing abilities will be very useful in my new ventures. Marcus's eyes fixed on me. And you, Gabriel, are going to watch me break her the way I should have broken you years ago. Gabriel's growl was pure menace. Touch her and I'll kill every wolf here, starting with you. With what? You're outnumbered 8-1. Marcus gestured to his pack. Even Gabriel Nightshade isn't that good. Want to test that theory? The tension in the alley was suffocating. I could feel violence building like a pressure cooker about to explode. Gabriel was coiled to spring, Marcus's wolves were ready to attack, and I was caught in the middle of a war I never wanted to be part of. Actually, a new voice said from behind Marcus's line, "He's not alone." Jenny stepped into the light, flanked by 5 wolves I didn't recognize. Their positioning was perfect, cutting off Marcus's escape routes while giving Gabriel backup. Jenny, Marcus's voice carried surprised displeasure. I thought you'd learned to stay out of pack business. I learned to choose my battles. Jenny's smile was sharp. This one seemed worth fighting. The odds had shifted, but we were still outnumbered. Marcus seemed to realize this too, because his expression turned calculating. An interesting development, he said, but not unexpected. You always were sentimental, Gabriel. Building little found families instead of respecting real authority. These wolves choose to be here, Gabriel replied. Unlike your pack, which follows you out of fear. Fear is honest. Loyalty can be faked. Marcus's attention turned back to me. Tell me, Dr. Thornfield, has Gabriel been honest with you about his recent activities? I felt Gabriel tense beside me. What are you talking about? Oh, he hasn't told you? How interesting. Marcus's smile turned poisonous. Gabriel has been quite busy these past 3 weeks. Dismantling my operations, freeing my assets, turning my own wolves against me. I looked at Gabriel in surprise. Is that true? Some of it, Gabriel admitted quietly. He's been waging a one-man war against everything I've built, Marcus continued. Destroying research facilities, liberating forced fighters, exposing pack corruption to the authorities. All in your name, dear doctor. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Gabriel had been fighting Marcus this whole time, using his insider knowledge to tear down the very organization he'd once served. Why? I asked. Gabriel's voice was barely audible. Because you were right. About choice. About freedom. About the kind of person I could be if I stopped being afraid of my own power. Marcus laughed coldly. How touching. Too bad it ends tonight. He raised his hand, and his wolves began to close in. Chapter 10. The alley erupted into chaos. Gabriel moved like a force of nature, silver blades flashing as he cut through Marcus's front line. Jenny's wolves attacked from the flanks, their coordinated strikes speaking of careful planning and shared purpose. But Marcus's pack fought with the desperate fury of wolves who knew their alpha's survival depended on victory. I pressed myself against the brick wall, trying to stay out of the melee while searching for an escape route. A Shadowmere wolf broke through Jenny's line, yellow eyes fixed on me with predatory intent. I pulled the gun Jenny had given me, hands steady despite the adrenaline flooding my system. Don't, I warned. The wolf lunged anyway. I fired twice, center mass, silver bullets dropping him before he could reach me. Well done, Dr. Thornfield. Marcus appeared beside me as if from thin air, moving with alpha speed that made him blur. Though I do hope you'll be more careful with my property once you're properly motivated. His hand clamped around my throat, cutting off my air supply. I clawed at his grip, but he was impossibly strong. Gabriel. Marcus's voice carried over the sounds of battle. Stop fighting or I'll snap her neck. The combat froze instantly. Gabriel stood 20 feet away, blood on his silver blades and fury in his green eyes. 3 Shadowmere wolves lay unconscious around him, but Marcus still had 4 fighters standing. Let her go, Gabriel said, his voice deadly calm. Your fight is with me. My fight is with disobedience, with chaos, with the breakdown of proper order. Marcus's grip tightened on my throat. You taught me something important tonight, Gabriel. You showed me that sentiment is a weakness that can be exploited. Gabriel took a step forward, and Marcus increased the pressure on my windpipe. Black spots danced at the edges of my vision. That's far enough, Marcus warned. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to submit to me, right here, right now. Full pack submission. On your knees, throat bared, acknowledging my authority over your life. And if I do, Dr. Thornfield lives. She even gets to keep her freedom as long as she stays far away from my territory and my business. Marcus's smile was cold. If you don't, well, I think you can imagine the consequences. I try to speak, to tell Gabriel not to sacrifice himself for me, but Marcus's grip made words impossible. Gabriel's expression was torture. I could see him weighing options, calculating odds, searching for a solution that didn't exist. You have 10 seconds, Marcus said pleasantly. Gabriel, no. Jenny's voice was urgent. There has to be another way. 8 seconds. Gabriel's knives clattered to the pavement as he dropped them. His hands rose in surrender, and I saw something die in his eyes, the spark of defiance that had made him choose freedom over safety. 5 seconds. Gabriel started to sink to his knees, the motion of someone accepting defeat. Marcus's satisfaction was radiant as he watched his former beta prepare to submit. That's when I remembered the silver scalpel tucked into my jacket pocket. I'd grabbed it from the clinic ruins 3 weeks ago, more from habit than planning. Now, as Marcus savored his victory, I palmed the blade and drove it backward into his thigh. Marcus roared in pain and fury, his grip on my throat loosening just enough. I twisted free and rolled away as he swiped at me with claws extended. Kill them all, Marcus snarled, silver blade protruding from his leg. But Gabriel was already moving. He retrieved his knives and launched himself at Marcus with lethal intent. They collided in a blur of fangs and claws and flashing silver, 2 alphas fighting for dominance. The remaining Shadowmere wolves hesitated, caught between helping their alpha and following his order to kill the rest of us. That moment of uncertainty was all Jenny's pack needed to press their advantage. Gabriel and Marcus fought like titans, their battle ranging across the alley in a display of supernatural speed and strength. But Marcus was bleeding from the scalpel wound, and 3 weeks of guerrilla warfare had taken their toll on his pack's morale. The tide was turning. Marcus must have sensed it too, because he suddenly disengaged from Gabriel and pulled out a gun. Not silver bullets, but something worse. Wolfsbane rounds, he panted, aiming at Gabriel's chest. 1 shot, and you'll be paralyzed for hours. Plenty of time for a proper execution. Gabriel froze, recognizing the threat. Wolfsbane bullets wouldn't kill him outright, but they'd leave him helpless while Marcus finished the job slowly. You always were too sentimental, Marcus said, finger tightening on the trigger. That's why you could never truly lead. You're right, Gabriel said quietly. I am sentimental. I care about people instead of treating them as resources. I choose mercy over fear. And that's why you lose. Marcus pulled the trigger. I moved without thinking, throwing myself between the gun and Gabriel. The wolfsbane bullet hit me in the shoulder, spinning me around and dropping me to the concrete. Pain exploded through my system, followed by the creeping numbness of wolfsbane poisoning. My healing abilities fought the toxin, but it was designed specifically to incapacitate supernatural creatures. Maya. Gabriel's roar was pure anguish. I tried to speak, to tell him I was okay, but the wolfsbane was spreading through my bloodstream. My vision blurred as I fought to stay conscious. Through the haze, I saw Gabriel's expression transform into something terrifying. The careful control he'd maintained shattered, replaced by the cold fury of an apex predator protecting his mate. What happened next was swift and brutal. Gabriel moved faster than I'd ever seen, disarming Marcus and driving him to the ground with crushing force. The remaining Shadowmere wolves tried to help their alpha, but Jenny's pack cut them off. "It's over, Marcus," Gabriel said, silver blade pressed to the fallen alpha's throat. "Your pack is scattered, your operations are exposed, and your enforcers are choosing freedom over fear." Marcus laughed despite the blade at his throat. "Kill me then. Prove you're exactly the monster I made you to be." Gabriel's hand tightened on the knife. For a moment, I thought he might actually do it, and Marcus permanently, and claim alpha leadership of the Shadowmere Pack. Instead, he pulled the blade away. "No," Gabriel said quietly. "I'm choosing to be better than what you made me." He stood and walked over to me, kneeling beside my fallen form. The wolfsbane was wearing off slowly, my healing abilities finally gaining ground against the toxin. "You idiotic, beautiful, impossible woman," Gabriel said softly, gathering me into his arms. "Why would you take a bullet for me?" "Because," I managed to whisper, "someone once told me that choosing kindness over fear makes you free." Gabriel's laugh was shaky with relief. "I think I'm falling in love with a very wise doctor." "Think." I tried to smile despite the pain. "I thought you already decided that weeks ago."
I did.
"But I wanted to hear you say it back." I reached up to touch his face, studying the man who'd gone from stranger to enemy to the person I couldn't imagine living without. "I love you too," I said quietly. "Both versions of you. Gabriel and Ethan and whoever you choose to be next." He kissed me then, gentle and desperate, and full of promises for the future we'd fought so hard to claim. Behind us, Jenny was zip-tying Marcus's hands while her wolves secured the remaining Shadowmere fighters. The pack war was over, ended not with total victory, but with the choice to break cycles of violence. "What happens now?" I asked as Gabriel helped me stand. "Now we build something new," he said, looking around at the mixed group of former enemies working together. "A pack based on choice instead of fear. A place where healers can work freely and wolves can choose their own loyalty. And us." Gabriel's smile was the same one that had made my heart race when he was just Ethan learning to make coffee. "Us, we heal. We grow. We figure out how to love each other without secrets or manipulation. No more lies." "No more lies," he promised. "Just us, building something real." As sirens wailed in the distance, human authorities responding to reports of gunfire, Gabriel took my hand and led me toward Jenny's car. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Home," he said simply. "Wherever that ends up being, as long as we're together." I squeezed his hand, feeling hope bloom in my chest for the first time in weeks. We had a lot of work ahead of us. Rebuilding trust, creating new lives, learning how to love without fear. But we had time. We had a choice.
And we had each other.
Sometimes, that was enough to heal even the deepest wounds.
The end.